Hello there, my crafty friends. It's Ashley Pfeiffer, the maker behind Stampin' AF. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Canada. And this month, we are featuring fun folds. Fancy folds, fun folds, I never quite know. This one is using the Autumn Greetings bundle, and I love this. It took me a while to get this one, and I'm not crazy about that big bouquet, but I do love the scripty font in here, and the dies are, pardon the pun, to die for. So my favorite one is actually one that we're using on this card, and it's that fun knit-like border. But there's another fun border die. There's these fabulous wheat dies. There's the pumpkins. It's wonderful. So I have gone ahead and prepped most of the supplies that we need for this. I'm going to bring in a piece of my Stamparatus grid paper to do some stamping on. So I have got a few scraps here. So this is very vanilla. This is 3/4 by about 4 1/4. I just ripped off the end. We have some brushed metallic cardstock, and I believe this is the gold one, but it could be like the champagne type one. This is 1 inch by 4 1/4. We've got 2 of the dies from the Hippo Happiness bundle, and this is very vanilla and mango melody. So this is the middle and largest dies. I've got 2 of the pumpkins from this bundle, and the outline is pumpkin pie with the adhesive sheet on the back, and then the full one is Mango Melody. I've done 2 of these wheat sheaths in saffron, and then I've got some different colors for the plaid because I have loved the heck out of this plaid and I have no more left in this colorway. So we're using Pretty Peacock and this gorgeous one. You can use any colors. I would suggest something that has some orange and yellow in it so that this all goes, but of course you could change up your colors. So we are going to start with a piece. I'm going to move all of this out of the way now that I've shown it to you. We're going to start with a piece of very vanilla thick. We're cutting this down to 5 1/2 by 11. Perhaps I should show you the inside before we get to the crafting. So we've got this gorgeous little belly band on here, and then it opens up and it says, "May this season fill your heart and home with the joy of friends and family." And I've got a little leaf stamped in there, and then of course some more of that plaid DSP. And this will stand on its own. It will stand with the belly band. It's not the world's most secure. I would recommend starting at the top because that wheat is a little fragile. So it will stand. I should also mention we've got some of that gold trim from the Wonder of the Season. You can use whatever trim you have. So let's get our craft on. So we're going to cut this down to 5 1/2, keeping it at 11. And while we have this scrap out, we are going to cut a 1 inch strip, and that is for the belly band. And then we can keep that for something else or discard it. We're just going to set this aside. Now, to make this easy, I'm just going to do the same score lines and then flip my paper around. So we're scoring at 1 1/4. Be sure to park your cutting blade. So 1 1/4 and then 3 3/8. 1, 2, 3. And then I will just flip it around and do that same thing. So 1 1/4. Did I do 1 1/4? Did I do, I might have done 1 1/8. We'll see. And then 3 3/8. So 1, 2, 3. It's 6 ticks in, basically. What I'm gonna do. No, I did it right. Okay, phew. Okay, so now what we are going to do is just fold and burnish this. I highly recommend using your bone folder to burnish a fancy fold, especially one like this, because you do want it to lie flat. And then for these two, we're going to burnish them flipping out. But I do recommend folding that and then opening the card right up and doing this part. So now we're going to bring in our Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, and we are going to do this die cutting. So you want, basically you want the straight line facing in and this line going out, because this is going to cut that fun little shape on the outside. If you put it the other way around, you're actually cutting this off and it won't be part of your card. It'll be part of the scraps. Now, I do find that because this is such a long die, it is awkward using the die cutting machine because we can't put it in on an angle like we normally would, which is to kind of give that roller a little bit of a break so it's not doing the whole thing at one time. But because this is so wide and our card base is so long, we can't do that. So brace yourself for the little bump that you're going to hear. And I would recommend, make sure if you're using the new plates that you keep the 3 and the Stampin' Up facing up, because if you put them down, the ink will actually transfer onto your card base. Ask me how I know. Okay, so I am going to bring this through, back, through, back. So I'm gonna have a nasty little bump as it comes through each way. Now the reason I say to go through twice is that this is a fairly intricate die in that there's all those pieces and you don't want to be sitting there popping those out for an hour. Ask me how I know that. So you're going to very carefully peel that tape away, trying not to get any cardstock coming off. And then what I like to do is just put this over my garbage can and give it a flick so most of those little ovals come out. To add to that extra knit texture, I'm going to take this folder from the Warm Hugs bundle. I'll have everything linked below. And I'm going to emboss both of these pretty peacock pieces. These are 2 inches by 5.5, and they just fit. Oh, they're 5 and just shy of 5.5. Now, when I've done embossing, I do not use Stampin' Seal or Stampin' Seal Plus. Well, that's the issue. See, one is shorter, one is longer. So we will go with this one because we can trim down the one. We can't add length to this one. So add a bit of glue. And I do want these to look like knit stitches, so I want them going this way. If you are a knitter, crocheter, you will understand what the heck I am talking about. If not, no biggie. So these are 2 by just shy of 5.5. Just glue those panels down. And then if you would like, you can use your Stampin' Seal or Stampin' Seal Plus to adhere the plaid pieces. I will tell you, I am not a fan of Stampin' Seal. I feel I've given that stuff a fair shake, and I don't know if I just got a really bad batch, but I would rather do Stampin' Seal Plus. We are friends. Stampin' Seal and I, not so much. And I just love these little rectangles. Anxious to see how this is going to look in this colorway versus the one that I had the first time around. So just glue these panels in. And these ones as well are 2. These ones are a solid 5.5 in length. And we don't need any cardstock in the middle because this is very vanilla. So while we're in here, let's just do our stamping. I chose this lovely sentiment, but I think I'm actually going to do a different one because once I did the sentiment on my sample, I thought, oh, I should have used this one. Now, I made the mistake of putting on my stickers and then putting them right on the clear case, and it's not a good idea. the cling mount is so strong that I have to pry it up. So I would not recommend that. I would recommend keeping the back little piece on there. Giving you tips all over the place, huh? So I am going to use crumb cake on the inside, just because it's nice and subtle. So give thanks with a grateful heart, and I just give it a little bit of a wiggle there. And then I'm going to bring in Mango Melody, and I'm going to stamp it off with these adorable little blustery leaves. Put away the crumb cake before I mess that up. So I'm just going to ink that up and stamp it off on my grid paper and then right above there. I feel it just really finishes the inside of a card when there's a sentiment and an image. Carries forth whatever's going on the outside. And speaking of the outside, I'm going to mount the sentiment that I used there, and that is "Hello there, friend." So we can now close this up, and it aligns perfectly. It's gorgeous, isn't it? And I'm going to keep my Mango Melody out because with that very vanilla tag that we did, I'm going to ink up that very large bouquet. I got stuff everywhere, don't I? It's a mess around here. So this gorgeous stamp, which, like I said, it's not my favorite bouquet, but I have created a couple of cards with this, which is more than I thought I would. So I am going to stamp this off. No, I'm going to do it full strength. We're not going to see much of it if I stamp it off. And you don't see much of it to begin with. So you notice it's such a big stamp that I prefer to ink it up with the stamp the right way or facing up. And then it doesn't really matter because you're not going to see a whole bunch of this image. I know our pumpkin's going to be sideways, but I wanted it to cover that whole tag. So just let it sit there for a few seconds, and now we've got that gorgeous bouquet. No one's ever going to notice that that pumpkin is sideways. It's our little secret. And while I have all of this stuff out, I'm going to use my embossing buddy because we're going to do some heat embossing with gold. When I use my heat tool, I do preheat it on high and then I lower it to the lower setting, and it takes some patience and it takes some more time, but the result is incredible. You don't burn your image, which in turn will flatten it. So I highly recommend taking the extra time to do it that way. So now we're going to bring in the Pick-a-Punch banner end, and I'm going to banner both this and that brushed metallic cardstock that I have. You're going to need at least 2 punches on either end, but I suggest pulling it out every time. You don't want to go too far and then have to redo what you've already done. So make sure that it's, this one's a little bit longer. Make sure you don't go too short. You can always take more off. You can't put it back on. So let's take out our strip. And basically the gold is going to determine how long we want this to be. Now I do suggest when you're using this punch, cut your cardstock or paper down by just a sliver. So this does 1/2 inch, 3/4 inches, and 1 inch. Just go a sliver shy on either side. Let's take a little bit more off of this. Now, in the same way, you don't want to take too much off your sentiment strip. You don't want to take too much off of this because then you may not have room. And both of these are still pretty long right now. There we go. So just play around with it till you're happy with the way it looks. Get rid of all your little offcuts. You could use those for something. I'm not going to, but you could. So with that pumpkin, I did mention that I used the adhesive sheets. It's far easier to do this than to mess with glue because these are very fine little lines. Line that up on there, give it a little push. I did put Wink of Stella on the pumpkin pie portion the last time, like on my sample, but that was also because I got some glue going where it wasn't supposed to go. So that's a good way to camouflage it if you ever need to. Put this away before I mess that up, and now we will get some dimensionals. Okay, so I don't like to use liquid adhesive when I'm adhering to metallic anything because it's so easy for it to move on you and make a real mess. So I prefer to use Stampin' Seal or Stampin' Seal Plus. So you can adhere those two, and then we're going to use dimensionals, both ends and in the middle. I do find this is about the max that I can get on using my take your pick tool. It's actually usually 5, so I did pretty good on that one. Okay, so we can pop that on up into the middle. It's a lot easier to do when my head is like right over instead of the camera in the way. And then we're just going to put a little bit of glue on the bottom half of that pumpkin. I almost said penguin. And just tuck that in there. You can kind of have it so it's in between those two pieces of wheat. The one thing I didn't do, and I always do this, I always realize there's something else I wanted to do and I end up doing it the hard way. So we are going, anyone see my scissors? If there's one thing on your craft table that you lose, tell me what it is. Because for me, it's my scissors. Every single time. Okay, so I'm going to start with, this is probably about 1 foot and a bit. Go around 4 fingers, 3 fingers, 2 fingers, and 1 if need be, but we're not really going to see that one. And then just play around till you get it the way you'd like. Might as well make that one a bit bigger. And then you can use a piece of tear and tape to keep it down, but I like to use 2 glue dots. 1 to put it into and 1 to put onto it so that it all stays put, especially because this trim tends to fray so quickly at the ends. So now what I can do is just pop it in there. It would have been much smarter for me to do it before I adhered all this, but that's just how I roll. Now what we can do is adhere it all to the belly band and we're done. So that 1 inch by 11 inch strip that we had, I prefer to actually just fold mine by hand. I know that you can score it and get perfect dimensions, but I prefer to just do it by hand, and then I can control how tight or loose it is. So once you get it straight, just give it a light burnish, and we don't need to have this much of an overhang. So you can cut off about 1 inch, and then we'll put some glue in the middle. Get that line back up. Hold it down for a few seconds, and it really doesn't matter if it comes right or if it goes left. And now we can glue this all on. So let's just put some glue over that seam. There we go. Wheat is a little worse for wear. And then the final step is to put on a couple of the gilded gems. And I am a fan of the tiny ones. Honestly, the big ones are just too big for me. So we'll put one at either end of that mango frame. And there we go. So I hope that you enjoyed that. If this is your first time here, welcome, and I hope you will hit that subscribe button. Please let me know in the comments below which one is your favorite. Do you love the cherry cobbler or the pretty peacock? Let me know. And if you recreate this fun fold, I would love to see it. You can tag me at Stampin AF on Facebook or Instagram, and I would love to see your creations. So thank you so much, and we'll see you soon, my crafty friends. Bye.